Here are the things you're going to need for your little wine rack. Some pasteboard, preferably some white if you can find it. Basswood or the balsa wood, the thin sheet. Piece of cardstock. A couple of toothpicks ought to do it this time. Sanding. Wire cutters. Okay, you've got a couple of different kinds of glue going on. You're going to need, actually, I didn't have this out, but you're going to need 3 sewing pins. It doesn't matter what color or whatever. You're going to need 3 of those. Your measuring, your measuring tools, your X-Acto, things like that. So now I will have a corrected version online. All right, I'll put that in the description, another link, Google link to Google Drawings. So what we're going to do is we cut the top and bottom out of wood. The legs will be toothpicks. The support is this thing that goes right under the doors, and that'll be wood. The doors, notice it says that they're going to be a little bit too wide possibly, but that's because the measurements can vary a little bit after you glue and so forth. Now the back, I'm going to use the cardstock for the back, okay? And I'll fix this. It's 5.7 by 1.7 because it should be basically the length of this, the width of this, okay? Now don't cut the compartment interlocks yet, all right? You can do all of that part, and then I'm going to show you in a minute how to do these compartment interlocks. When it comes to cutting the little interlocks, what I did is a bunch of measuring and marking, but you should have 1.3 wide, okay? This is 1.3, and then this is 1.6. Now, the slots, okay, are going to go down. It's not exactly halfway, you know, that would be somewhere around 7 millimeters-ish. Now, these slots are, it's kind of obnoxious, but they're like 4.5 apart. Now, I made these extra thick because when you go to cut these, all right, the insides, which you don't necessarily have to do first, I just want to show you, you're actually going to just keep cutting this out until you get, oh, I would say that's almost a millimeter. You don't want it to be too big and you don't want it to be too small. And you can test that by, when you get more than one of them, trying to slide them together. And I'll show you how to slide them together. So see, I'm going to go ahead and carve these out, right? And this is how they interlock. So I've got some over here, and I'll show you how to slide these together. So you're going to make, let me think here, we need to make 8 of these so that you've got 4 for each side. You could even make a pattern out of this, like cut one and go across and then clean it up a little bit. That might work for you as well. So these are kind of messy, because I thought I'd cut them out of wood and it didn't go well. So at any rate, what you do to put these together is you're just going to hold one with the little slots up and then figure out what's the good side, what's the bad side, and take the first one, slide it into the first one. Okay, I don't know, where's my bad side? That side. Okay, and like so. And then you can flip it over if you want to do this next part, and then it's going to be like that. Now, you can add glue after the fact or before the fact, but you are going to want to get those all nice and square. So it doesn't really matter when you do the glue. I have a tendency to do it afterwards and just use my toothpick and get in there and do that. So you'll want to do 2 of those, okay? And I'll put those aside. Now, what can happen here is your back. You can use your back actually to help you to glue. The only thing about that is your cutting might not be perfect. So, when we go to glue these down, we want to be careful about that. And so we can help ourselves by doing that, but also on the other hand, you might have an error. So what'll happen here is we're going to start on one side. We're not going to do both sides all at once. All right, we're going to start on one side and work in. Now, I have my step-by-step so I don't tell you the wrong thing. And then, okay, so we're going to go ahead and glue these on, and I'll just do that real quick right here. So now that this is good and dry, and you want to make sure that that is, then you can go to the other side. All I was saying is you don't want to try to do one piece here and then go back and forth or anything like that. You want one complete side, because you have to keep watching to make sure that these things don't get wobbly and go off center. So like I said, maybe you have chosen to use this back to help you out. At this point, it looks like it's doing okay for me. The square and the squareness of this back. And it's okay if this is slightly smaller than the back itself. That's also not a big deal. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this other side as well. And then I will show you how to install the doors. So we're ready to put the hinges on the doors. Now, you don't have to have hinged doors. You can just go ahead and glue this in and have stationary doors, not a problem. If you want them hinged, what you're doing is you're gluing those I had you get out, hopefully I reminded you to get some sewing pins out. And what I've done is I've just glued to the side with some super glue. Actually my super glue didn't work. Hopefully yours will. I've glued it to the side. I've left some space here for what we're going to do is we'll wind up piercing this. We'll wind up putting that all the way down on the bottom. Okay. Or basically all the way down on the bottom. And so you don't want too much sticking out, but you do want some. Mine are not quite dry, so I'm going to adjust them slightly because I think I had a little bit too much. So notice, of course, that I put one hinge on this side and one hinge on this side. If you have a right and wrong side to your doors because you messed something up on the back, be aware of that because it's got to go, you have to have one end that is the sharp end. Okay, at any rate, while these dry, and I am hoping mine sticks. Okay, while they're drying, you can do something else. You can take another sewing pin, and we're going to be thinking about, what do I want? Do I want this as my front? Is this, the better one? Looks like this side is the best. All right, so now, if that's my front, then I want to take this, keeping in mind that's my front, and I'm going to make a part, like a hole for the hinges to go in. Now, what I want to do is super careful. I want to be very careful here. And what's going to happen, I'll just show you here, because I think this might be dry. I'm going to trim this pin down pretty far. I don't think you can see that super well, but I am not going to have very much hanging out at all. So about like that is fine. Gosh, is that even a millimeter? I have to have something sticking out because I'm going to put the hinge in there, the top of the hinge. Okay, I can do that on both. Just a little bit, but make sure it does stick out or else your doors you'll have to redo that part. Okay, so those are ready to go. So because these are dull, I need to make a hole for them to go. Whereas when I go and I stick this in, it's pointy and it's not going to be a problem. So very carefully, that's my front, I have to make these holes in the front. What I want to do, see if I can show this, is I want to put my pin a little bit back from what would be my front edge and in just a little bit. Okay, now I have to be super careful. I don't want to stick my pin all the way through because then I'm going to have to sand or something to cover up my mistake. So in a little bit is fine. Let's see how I can do. Okay, so I want to go ahead and press on it just a little bit. And then I'm going to kind of widen that hole by sort of making circular motions. And then I can kind of widen that a little bit. And that can be adjusted if it's not quite big enough. I just want to be careful not to split my wood when I make a hole there. And then of course I'm going to do that over here for the other one. Pretty much close as I can get. I can adjust these later if needed, but not by a lot. You know, this wood isn't particularly, especially if you used balsa wood, you're going to be able to, you'll be okay, because that's a very soft wood. So, all right, so I'm pretty pleased with those. As soon as these are really dry, and I don't know that mine are, what you're going to do though, is you're going to take this end, and you're going to see if you can place it where that hole was. Let's see how well I did that. Watch your finger there. See how well I did it. This is how I double check. And it looks like I could go in more. I could go up against this more. So I'm going to check those, I'm going to adjust those, okay? And what I will do after I adjust that, I'll come back in a minute, but what you can do when you get a chance is just to go ahead and glue this support into the middle. This is whatever end you want to have, like that's going to be your bottom, and then you're just going to glue this in the center. And we'll have that ready to go when we finish up these doors, because I need to slightly adjust this. Now, hopefully you have the little spot where you need it to be the little hole to put the top of the hinge. It took me a few tries. So at this point, you're going to need to decide how much are you going to need to cut off. And in my case, this is quite a bit when you go with the hinges and everything added. So what you're going to do is you're just going to measure over and figure out how much you need to cut to get these to go in there very nicely, or to sand. After quite a bit of sanding and adjusting and cutting, I believe that I have this just right, so that including the hinges, I can fit this in here. Obviously they'll be a little bit bigger if you're going to make them stationary. All right, this next step, I have to admit, is it's really fussy. So what happens here is we're going to go ahead and take the dull side, and we're going to go ahead and fit that into the hole. Now, it might not go all the way down just yet, but don't worry about that, because then we're going to put the other one here, and if I did measure correctly, it's awfully tight. I might have to adjust that in a minute, but I'm going to try to get those to go into their spots, those hinges. And I'm very carefully doing that and adjusting my doors. Okay, now there's that. Oh, but there's more. There's more. I have to sand those. But, okay, I told you this is fiddly. So I need to get these. Let me pause this. What I was having a hard time with is keeping these doors in place. So I decided to do a little bit of tape because I needed to push these down, that meant I had to go get the thimble to kind of push these in. And so that's one fiddly thing. and then but we're not finished. Unfortunately, we have to put the bottom on. And that's a little fiddly as well. So what's going to happen here is we are going to get all of our glue ready to go. Okay, all of these need to be covered in glue. And don't use a fast drying glue. Honestly, this is the tacky glue, and it dries slow enough. Don't get any on your door unless you meant to make them stationary. And I tried this many different ways to see, you know, if there's kind of an easier way of doing this, but in order to get those little hinges to work, unless you know how to make a hinge even better, this is what happened. Okay, so glue along there. Then this support goes on the outside, or what will be like this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to sandwich this together, and while we're doing that, we want to make sure that our doors kind of stay in place. So slow drying glue helps you to be able to do this several times. And I want to hold the doors in place and push them down. So let's see how that's going, because I also have to line up with the outside and so forth. So I need to definitely push some more on this, and being very careful not to do what I almost did right there, which is to drive that through the top. It's doing it a little bit. Like I said, this is fussy. I really just want the bottom to go in. Okay, it is, but I think I have a little notch there I'll have to do something about. And what I do is I'm gonna just hold that until that glues straight across, which you see here, I've got some adjustment of some kind to make because that's not sticking. So something needs to be adjusted. Okay, quite a bit of adjustment. And then of course I accidentally made that top hinge a little too long and it went through there. So I'm gonna need to paint this. Originally I wanted to stain it, but I'm gonna need to paint it. So the last two steps would be to make your handle, and I'm just using the rest of the pin that I used to make the holes. And then just sort of decide how long you want these to be. I think that I'm going to cut that. You can just eyeball it. I didn't decide on an exact dimension, but let's see how that looks. You probably want to go fairly long, maybe a little shorter than this though, because what happens is it's kind of like matching the hinges. I don't know that I do the whole thing. I would maybe actually trim this a little bit more. Okay, so long story short, then you need to decide on your legs, whatever you're going to do. If it's going to be mid-century modern, then of course you leave the pointy end. If you want it to just be more contemporary, then of course you can just get your square, preferably your square toothpicks, or make them square, and then you can just put your legs on like that. Now, if you are going to do the mid-century modern, then you are going to need to sand, and you want a angle, okay? You want to be able to have an angle, so you're going to need to sand it to where it can fit at an angle in there. Let's see if I did this well. Okay, you want it at an angle, whatever your angle is, and you want it to fit all nice in there. Okay, so you'll figure out your angle. And your toothpicks, did I tell you what the toothpicks are? Yes, you're just going to do 1 centimeter on that. Okay, so I'm going to finish that up and I'll show you what that looks like. But don't forget to subscribe, and I'll show you the finished product in a minute. Here's your final project. I went ahead and painted mine, and then I 3D printed some little wine bottles and just put some paint on the tops of them to kind of make it look like there's the foil on the top. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and don't forget to subscribe.